Welcome to another chapter of In the Keep podcast. I'm your very own prophet of the drowned god, the Motherlode. This show is all about the world of first-person shooters, their legacies, their lineage, and the people who keep that world turning. It is the will of the drowned god Cathala that our communities band together to frag and jib one another into oblivion for all eternity. So as with all good things, this episode has a story behind it as to how it came together. And anybody, if you're a really big fan of the show, you probably listened to the episode we did with Ted Hitchke of DreadX. And that was actually the second take of an episode that we'd done before where we rambled for like 3 hours, and we decided not to put that one up for various reasons, but mostly because I forgot to save it, I think. But it doesn't matter. Thank the drowned god Cathala that episode never saw the light of day, because what you ended up with was a much more condensed version of what we were trying to talk about. But in that original recording, I expressed to him at length my struggle with criticizing games or just things in general. Not that I don't think that my opinion is valid. I think that's the way I came across to him, and it's not that I don't think I have a valid opinion. I just really actually believe in the whole, like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all sort of, point of view on life. No one's perfect in that regard, and I'm certainly not, but I try my best to just not go around spouting out negativity. I feel like there's so much negativity in the world and the media right now that's the last thing that I want to give to my audience, is just another source of whining and bitching and complaining and all that. So I have up until now mostly kept my mouth shut about Doom Eternal. And recently I got a message from Connor Howard from the Lore Party podcast, and I'm a fan of the Lore Party podcast, so this was pretty cool. He reached out to me and he's like, hey, we're putting together maybe a series on Doom, and we thought you'd be a great, panel guest, or at least in some way I'd like to collaborate with you in regards to Doom. And I was like, well, how could we do that? I don't do what they do. Like, that Lore Party is such a well put together, very edited, very scripted kind of autopsy, on the story and the lore of games, and that is, we don't do that here. I think I say at some point during this interview, what we do here is jazz, and what they do is like compose symphonies. But I'm up for a challenge, and I'm like, yeah, and bouncing ideas off of each other. We thought, well, what if we did like a debate? Because my initial response was like, look, man, I can't honestly tell you I'm going to show up and have a lot of really nice things to say about Doom Eternal. Like, it's not that I hate it, but I definitely don't love it enough to show up acting like I just know every little bit of the lore and all this kind of shit behind it. Not that I wouldn't do my research, but he's like, yeah, it'd be cool to do like a debate. But then I got to thinking, I don't really want to be the anti-Doom Eternal guy. Who do I know that fucking hates Doom Eternal? And you got fans of the show again. Bruno Beaudoin, creator of Nightmare Reaper. You may know him by the name Itburn. Is, there are guests that come on the show that, you have a relationship with, that it's very professional. Like, hey, man, love to see you again for the game and all that kind of thing. And then there are people that you just, you end up texting them on the weekends and exchanging, hey, Bruno, here's a picture of me and my wife sitting on the back porch drinking beer and all that. You have a real relationship with somebody. And Bruno is one of those guys that, like, I respect the shit out of him. I love his art, his game. Nightmare Reaper is one of my favorite things that's happened in I don't know how long. And he notoriously blew up for his criticisms of Doom Eternal, and really well articulated, I might add, criticisms of Doom Eternal. So I reached out to Bruno. I was like, hey, do you want to maybe like do a little debate? I will bring on the Lore Party guy. It was just perfect. This is a perfect storm, I thought. Like, I can't believe I had this idea. So what we decided was we do this debate on our show as a way, like promote Lore Party and also to promote Nightmare Reaper and just have fun with it, because it's kind of a free-form conversation. And then hopefully later on, I will come on Lore Party and try to, help them compose a symphony of, one of these episodes. They're going to do a whole series on Doom, and I can't wait to hear that. So, without any further ado, guys, I present to you this awesome debate between Connor Howard of the Lore Party podcast and Bruno Beaudoin of Nightmare Reaper and Blazing Bed Games. And honestly, it's a debate for a while, and then it just turns into an awesome conversation. Really happy to share it with you. Let's hit the music, and then when it's over, we'll be in the keep with Conner and Bruno. Alright, so the point of this is to basically introduce you two guys. First of all, in this corner, weighing in at I don't know how much, we have Bruno Beaudoin, developer of Nightmare Reaper, and he is going to be representing the anti-Doom Eternal clan, because, I don't know, man, you blew up when you had your criticisms of it, and I'll let you speak on your own behalf here in a bit, but, so that was awesome. And then in the other corner, we have Connor. You are an amazing host on an amazing... What is it? I don't even want to call it a podcast, because Lore Party is like a group of podcasts almost.
Yeah, it's a network, and that's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah. So what you guys do is kind of dig into the stories of games and really appreciate the inner universe of the gaming world in general, but each individual game. And I really like your show. I'm glad you reached out to me. So
thank you. Likewise. Glad we could do this.
You've gotta do the hard task, and you have to be pro Doom Eternal, and we're gonna give this game a proper... I almost said post-mortem, but let's just give it a proper view of where we all stand and how we feel about this. And I'll just be the referee. I don't want to say I'm totally impartial, but I'm fairly impartial when it comes to this game. I think it's really cool, in general, but there's a lot to be said about it. And so, who wants to go first? Who wants to start us off?
I can clarify that I'm not against the game. I think it's made for some people. Some people are gonna love it, but I didn't like it. And I mean, I respect if you disagree with me also, but
sure.
I think I'll explain clearly why.
Yeah, and I would say, just first of all, this is all personal. It's all very much subjective, and I'm not here to say you're wrong if you didn't like this game. I'm not here to say that by any means. So, yeah, I'm just from what I know of Bruno's position, I know I would say he definitely has valid points. I'm here to defend the game, but just from the perspective of I thought it was fun, and I thought a lot of the mechanics and decisions were good ones. But there's definitely a lot of room for kind of common ground, and we could meet in the middle and say, yeah, you're right about that, or yeah, you're right about that. So
yeah, and I think the post I did on Twitter kind of blew up because this voice has not really been heard because of the overwhelming positive feedback Eternal got. So we're definitely in the minority, but there is a public that didn't feel heard.
Sure.
So there's a reason why I think that you're a perfectly good example of someone who should be able to say that they don't like it and then list their reasons, and people should perhaps respect it a bit, because your game is quite derivative of the old school Doom, and you've cut your teeth in the gaming industry, in the AAA industry, and then moved on to start your career with Nightmare Reaper and work on something independent. You have a lot of background here, so it's not like you're just some guy.
To be clear, my game is not it's not this is all to do a better game than Eternal. Like, that's not at all, at all what I'm saying. Like, my game is just a dumb indie game. I tried to make it fun, but I'm not saying my game is better than Eternal. I'm not saying I took better decisions and everything. Just to be clear.
I think that you have the right to speak, and you have the credentials to back up your point of view.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I protected myself enough. I said...
All right. So, first and foremost, what like, let's go point by point. Like, your first big gripe, what like stands out to you immediately? This is not something that I cared for when it comes to Doom Eternal.
The main problem is the gameplay itself, if you will. There is a bigger problem, which I think is the reason why this game is the way it is. It's because of like overproduction and trying to... It feels like a designer had an idea for a game. He played a bunch of other games and he wanted his game to be like that, like regardless of what people like or regardless of what Doom is. And he changed the gameplay, I feel, dramatically compared to the old Dooms, but also compared to 2016. It doesn't seem like much because it feels similar at the start, but the gameplay is completely different. So
I could see that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it feels like I'm gonna straight up say it, like a third-person action game. Like, I feel there's huge like parts of it that feel like stuff like Bloodborne or Devil May Cry, even like God of War and stuff like that. The huge amount of influence from like these third-person console games, and not so much from the old Doom. The 2016 was... Anyway, the way I saw it was taking elements from the old Doom and bringing back these elements into modern AAA games. Like, especially in the level design. In 2016, there were many levels that you could clear areas in different orders, and you could like do... They weren't 100% linear. Near the end of the game that changed, but there were a bunch of levels that were more open, and that was like very refreshing for me compared to all the AAA linear shooters we had. And in Eternal, this is completely gone, and there are many aspects of 2016 that got lost. I felt 2016 once again was bringing classic games into the modern AAA. And I felt like Eternal was like, nah, let's ignore all that and just make a modern AAA game that looks like other modern AAA games.
Okay. I think that's a good place to start digging in.
That's the overall theory I have around this.
So let's just like put a pin in exactly what the point is and put it up here on the metaphorical whiteboard of ideas. I had the same conversation with someone where, regardless of how you feel about the decision, Doom Eternal for sure is more like a Bloodborne style game, in that if you do not play it in the way that it's, quote, meant to be played, then you will lose. You don't have any freedom of how you play the game.
You have some, but it's so limited and so strict that, yeah, I agree with that.
I feel like that's fair. I guess I didn't think of it that way while playing it, but put to me that way, I can understand that. I think that's a great point where you point out the similarities between Doom Eternal and some of the Soulsborne-esque, that genre, that subgenre of action games where you have to learn the dance to be successful. In any of the Soulsborne games, you have to really get the dodging and the parrying and the stamina use, and all that stuff has to be practiced and sort of drilled into you. And I think it's a very fair point to make, that it's like in Eternal, you kind of feel that same pressure to learn the skills and use them the right way to succeed. I guess from my perspective, just the way I engaged with the game and enjoyed it, it was like I'm learning the dance. I'm kind of learning the steps of this combat loop, as the developers called it. And it's like, I think what they intended was, we want to give everyone the tools to meet certain challenges, and as they learn how to use those tools effectively, they are kind of just building proficiency in the game. So I totally think it's fair that you're losing some there's a trade-off there. You're losing some freedom in how you approach different situations, but you're gaining a more I think defined or more focused sort of goal in your combat, where it's like you know exactly what tools can be used to solve certain problems. Like, let's say the whiplash is a fast demon that can outmaneuver you very easily, but the freeze bomb is the tool to use. So maybe you feel like, I can see how you could feel like, oh, I wish I could approach this in different ways. But I think Doom Eternal's goal was like, let's speed things up so that you're always having pressure put on you, and you have to think really fast on your feet to meet all these different challenges. This is all to say, like, that's not for everyone. That kind of approach is definitely not for everyone. So, like, I can see how if you played 2016, which I did, and I loved that game as well, I feel like you could kind of use all the different weapons in 2016 in many different ways. They all had sort of multiple applications, whereas in Eternal, all the guns are like very specific for certain applications. Everything just has more of a purpose to it. And for me, I'm like, I enjoy that, because that means I learn the dance faster. That means I get better faster. That means I sort of know the challenge and I know how to meet it. But you could also see it as, I feel restricted. I feel kind of railroaded. So that's kind of my my half-assed defense, but that's just how I saw it. But yeah, that's all to say. Fair point. That's fair. I just saw it differently, I guess.
It's what you say is entirely true. I just didn't like this dance.
Sure.
I want a different dance.
That's fine. Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
And this is the only dance the game will allow you.
Yeah,
I think definitely in older games, in the older Doom games, I should say, you just generally had more freedom of how you wanted to play the game. As you said, I don't like this dance. Like, they force you to fall into exactly that combat loop. And another point that I think that you would probably make is, I think you did make this, if I'm looking over your list correctly, was how the actual combat loop is so repetitive, and you kind of just go in that circle of, this is how you platform to the next section. Then you see a few enemies, and you farm some health if you have to, and then you're in a big arena where you just fight through them, and then live, die, repeat, sort of, with that.
It couldn't be more repetitive.
Yeah.
The other it would be fine if it wasn't so grueling, because the missions are so long and there's so many collectibles. Like, I just look at a level and I'm stressed. I'm like,
yeah,
it's gonna take a while. I have to get all the unlockables, or else I'm gonna miss on things. And
yeah, it's definitely overwhelming at times. I guess one thing I would push back on, though, I think you mentioned in your original post, and you kind of touched on this earlier just now, was the linearity of the missions. Sometimes you feel sort of funneled through the levels. And I guess I would say that one thing in defense of Eternal was the mechanic of fast travel. I think that there's a problem with, what if I accidentally finish the mission and I leave some collectibles on the table? And, the option's there to always go back and find them again. Or even before you leave, the game tells you...
don't want to go back.
No, yeah, that's the thing, though. But
it's
even before you... I get that. But even before you leave the level, the game tells you fast travel is now available. So you can go to, any point.
I have missed this message 2 or 3 times.
Sure.
And I'm not a newbie. I played games my whole life. I pay attention to things, but I missed it.
I guess I would just say, to be fair to the game, it does tell you that, you can go back and look for things.
Being a game designer, when players miss things in my own game, I feel like I failed, because it wasn't clear enough. Even if it's very clear, which there are many things that I feel are very clear, but people still miss them.
Yeah, I guess if I was going to give advice to id Software, it'd be like, yeah, you're telling the player they can fast travel now and go back for collectibles, but that message you're giving them is this tiny little pop-up in one upper corner of the screen. Maybe maybe make it like this big flashy thing, kind of like when they pick up a collectible, like you found this, the blood punch or whatever, like tell them and make sure they hear it. So like, yeah, there's an argument to be made. Like if the player doesn't receive the message, that it's kind of the fault of the developers.
It should ask you when you want to end a level. Simple as that.
That's fair. Yeah, that's also a good point.
Because that was frustrating. And I don't want to replay levels also. And you have to replay the entire level, and these are long levels.
Well, you can always quit when you find what you wanted to go back and find, because like the progression stays the same.
If it's at the end, you're screwed. Which is it always is. It always is at the end too, because you make sure you clear a section before going to the other one, and the structure is so clear and linear that you always know, okay, this section I'm going to be done. I got to complete this one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean. And if you're unlucky like me and you get the bug where the purple keys, what are those? These
the Slayer keys, Slayer gates.
Yeah, they didn't spawn for me.
Yeah, I've heard of that happening.
So I was like, I can never complete this level, and I don't want to replay it. It's gonna take way too long.
Yeah, that's fair. I had this one glitch, just as a quick aside, when I first started playing, like right after launch. I had this one glitch where in an early level, like one of the first 3 levels or so, the cultist base, it's called, for anyone who's played and knows about it. This one point in the map, I would go up an elevator, and right as I step off of it, the game crashed every single time. And I kept like rebooting and trying again, like, what the hell is happening? Like, this is ridiculous. This is bullshit. Like, it's just crashing the game every time I get off this elevator. And I finally found a workaround, but it's like, yeah, when that's I think you could argue, obviously, a game breaking bug, and that's a huge strike against the game and the studio. But thank God for patches and upkeep, I guess. But still, that's hard to excuse, obviously. When
I've had many bugs. I'm not going to go into them all. But,
sure.
The point where the enemies were behind a locked door, and I needed to kill them to open the locked door. I was what?
Right.
And they were it was a transparent wall, and they were infighting behind the wall. And they were paying attention to me, and I was like, come out.
It's like a Schrodinger's demon. Like, that's inside a locked room. You can't proceed until you kill them, but you can't kill them until you proceed. And I just picture Hugo Martin laughing, like, figure that one out, asshole. Just like
I thought it was like I missed something. I was like for half an hour going through the level, and I just restarted the whole thing.
It's the kind of thing American McGee would have done on purpose.
I think so, yeah. Man. But it's...
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was done.
It is a bit frustrating in general when you talk about, a AAA studio like id Software, the pinnacle of game design, and to release a game, that has game-breaking bugs in it is quite annoying. But then there's the alternative argument where I feel that there's a simplicity that a lot of Doom players hearken to, like we love and appreciate about the original Doom series, is that it is very simple. It's not like complicated. You don't have to like do a big brain thinking. And oftentimes you were talking about the hints and everything about what you're supposed to be doing. Our brains are like trained not to look at that shit. Like, I don't need all that extra information. I just want to shoot some demons. And that can be a very frustrating thing to kind of have to adapt to, I guess, or even to even want to adapt to. It's just not the kind of thing that I'd see a lot of old school Doom players appreciating when they move on to this game. And clearly it's very muddled. Not everybody feels the same way.
I mean, I was going into this thinking, comparing it to 2016 more than the classic ones. Because personally, I'm a huge fan of the classic ones, but I want more complexity in my shooters, I like the progression. I like finding unlockables and secrets. It's just it has to be done in a good way, a satisfying way.
Yeah, one last thing I would say, just to tack on to what we were talking about earlier about, I guess, my thing about the weapons and the combat and how it railroads the player. I would say that I think if you spend enough time with it and you get a feel for all the different weapons and abilities and how they synergize with each other, you might find that there's a lot more freedom than initially was available to you. Like when you first start out in Doom Eternal and you're just given the shotgun and the 2 mods for it, and then you progress up and you have the plasma rifle, and like you're getting bits and pieces of the toolbox that will eventually be fully available to you. And you might think, oh, well, this gun's only good for this application. This gun's only good for this enemy. I think like when you kind of wait for the payoff and get to the payoff, you're like, these mods and these guns do so many different things that aren't obvious. Like I guess just as an example, the microwave beam mod for the plasma rifle. When I first got it, I was like, this is dog shit. This thing's useless. What? Because like when you lock onto an enemy with it, you'll zap them and they freeze and they explode after you charge them up long enough, but you also stop moving. And obviously in Doom, or Doom in general, or Doom Eternal specifically, if you stop moving, you die. So like, why would I use this? But it was pointed out to me that if you just kind of like zap, like a quick burst, you stun lock them and you can keep moving. You just zap, move, and like it's a stun lock move. Maybe it's an exploit, but it's also kind of like taking advantage of what's available to you. And there's like tricks that players find when they kind of play with the combat loop and the weapon rhythm and the ability rhythm. When they play with it, they find possibilities that weren't immediately obvious to them. So I don't know. I would say there's maybe a bit more depth than is obvious to the combat loop, but that's behind this obvious brick wall of you need to learn the dance first. And I can see how that's off-putting to some players, but that would just kind of be my one last point on that.
That is not my issue with it. I'm
sure
perfectly fine with a lot of options, a lot of complexity, and I agree. There are a lot of them. The weapon mods are probably the best part of the weapon system or the combat system. My problem is something else entirely. It's that it's like a toy, a heavily designed toy that does something in some circumstances and something else in others. Like just shooting a weapon, you don't feel like there's bullets coming out of it, and you can't see like the impacts of individual bullets. What you see is, I shot in this general direction. Now the toy is going to calculate what's happening in the level, what kind of monsters are close, and then it's going to decide what happens. And that's this feeling of some an entity that's thinking about what I'm doing and deciding what should happen for me. Like, I'm not doing this. There's too much of that, I found. Like, every weapon is supposed to is like overpowered for enemy X. For example, the shotgun with a grenade launcher, you shoot one on a Kako with his mouth open. Even if you're not like quite there, doesn't matter. The game will teleport your grenade into his mouth, and then you can insta kill him. But usually, like a grenade, you're gonna have to shoot 5 of them to kill a Kako. So what's happening here? These types of things are a detriment to me. It feels overproduced. I want to see my bullets. I want to feel that my bullets always have the same damage. You know, I don't want a simulation, but
right.
Yeah,
I guess like, that's. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the old. Yeah, go ahead.
No. I just want to make sure you got to finish your sentence.
Okay. When you shoot monsters, they lose parts of their bodies. Like that's amazing, but you don't get the satisfaction of that because you don't feel your bullets. Like you shoot generically in a generic direction of the enemy. The hitboxes are massive around them, and they lose parts of their bodies, but you don't see your bullet going there. Like sometimes you do, but I mean in general, I feel like everything is kind of vague and something behind the curtains is deciding what actually happens. It's very vague, but that it's a feeling.
I get that. I guess that's maybe just a natural byproduct of a game focusing more on like movement and positioning than aiming. Like they don't want you to think too much about.
That's another thing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I want to play a shooter. It's a shooter, but you don't do that much shooting compared to other games.
You do plenty of shooting. It's just the shooting doesn't.
And then you melee kill them.
Right.
Constantly meleeing people like non-stop.
I love that. So, but I
it's fine. It's fine for a bit. It's fine when you decide to do it because that's what you want to do now. But you have to do it all the time.
Yeah, I was thinking about this concept you bring up of you want your weapons to feel like they have impact and you want the projectiles to really feel like game objects. You know, they have consequence in the game world. And I'm just wondering if like Eternal loses some of that just as a natural consequence of the developers wanting to program in these hard counters to enemies. Like certain enemies have a hard counter where, you know, like you mentioned, the Cacodemon and the Sticky Bomb, like you have to get it in the mouth. You have to like wait for the animation to line up a little bit, but certain enemies just respond in different ways to different weapons. It doesn't feel like the rules apply the same way across the game. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like the guns should all have, or kind of play by the same rules, but the mechanics kind of change the rules of the weapons too much?
Yes, that's a big part of it.
I could see that. I can understand that.
Like a weapon that does more damage, if it's not the key weapon for that enemy at that time, it's going to do less damage, which doesn't make any sense to me, and it's frustrating.
The thing I like about it, though, is that it makes it. I guess I know where you're coming from, where it feels less like a shooter and more like, you know, a puzzle game. But for me, it's like I kind of appreciate and enjoy that sense of I'm shooting demons, but beyond shooting, I'm also kind of playing this high speed game of chess where I have to think about my next move, and I kind of like how there's a lot of things going on at once, but I understand how all of that happening at once makes you feel like you're losing that sense of just I'm playing a shooter. Like some of the shooter elements are taking a backseat to the high speed strategy elements and the puzzle elements and the hard counters and the dance and all that. There's a lot happening that sort of crowds out the shooter vibe, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure that. I think there are other first-person shooter games that also have a lot of action and a lot of requiring you to move a lot. Like maybe not as much, but I'm not sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Because I don't think you need to like have this set up to keep the player busy and have the player dodge a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you're right. Maybe it's because of maybe it cranks up the intensity.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yes, of course.
I just wanted to open my beer. No, I think I can kind of articulate maybe where we're at here is part of the design that Hugo was kind of showing off, you know, and telling everybody this is going to be fucking awesome. He was on Joe Rogan saying this, and you actually used the phrase we're talking about it feels like a high speed chess match.
Mm-hmm.
To a lot of players, I feel that the way that Doom Eternal functions in a combat sense and in a weapons usage sense is what takes it away from being a shooter and takes it more into being like that big brain high speed chess thing, is that all of the weapons, I think Bruno kind of alluded to this a bit, was they all seem to not have a consistent amount of damage that they do, and it doesn't matter what enemy you use them. For instance, you can shoot an enemy like 100 times with a rocket launcher, and then they go into their kill state, and then you just go up and you hit them with a sword thing. Like, you're not. Am I supposed to believe that a rocket launcher wasn't going to kill them? Like, you know, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know why my knife does more damage, or, you know, is the finishing weapon to what, you know, what could have easily just been an explosion kill, which makes a lot more logical sense. However, within the rules of the game, and this is what makes it a bit more like a board game than like a first-person shooter. Within the rules of the game, you know, you just understand eventually how things work in this universe, and then you can just go along with that and have a good time. So for a lot of people, Bruno seems to be one of them. I know quite a few of them. It feels like their attempt to create an in-game logic that you have to follow challenges their actual logic, like their real life logic of how how this would work if I shot someone in the face with a rocket launcher.
Sure. Yeah, the game definitely has its own set of rules, its own sense of reality that if you don't embrace it, the game doesn't really make sense to you, or it's not going to be fun for you. If it just doesn't jibe with how you normally approach a shooter or how you normally play a game, it's going to feel kind of disassociating. I totally get that. I think even Hugo was kind of making that point. Like, you have to sort of feel it and like get into the flow of it, and otherwise it's just going to be kind of frustrating or something. It's it's definitely a game that doesn't like extend that bridge to you maybe as well as it could. You really have to meet it halfway and kind of embrace the rules, and like you said, its own set of internal logic, I guess, which can be hard.
Yeah, I think Hugo definitely knew this. I think he said, I think in a no-clip interview, that the game will show you how to play it for it to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he kind of succeeded because of the like crazy positive reception it got, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all my gripes with the combat itself. There's some minor things, but I don't have much else to say on that.
Okay. I would say just to wrap up that section of this conversation, Bruno, nothing but respect for where you're coming from. I totally get it. I just personally had a lot of fun with it, but I hear I'm hearing you. I see you. You are valid. Thank you.
Yeah, but the Doom brand does not see me, and it's probably just going to go in that direction.
That's a travesty.
They're going to keep floating. Well, there's the indie games. They're always there for me.
It's always there, yeah.
So I think that section was the side of the argument that sort of favored Bruno as the shooter designer.
Sure.
And now we're going to move into a section that I think favors.
Don't say that. I'm not an authority. I made one game.
More of an authority than I am, at least.
You're so impossible, man. I swear to God, he will not take a compliment.
No, that's definitely childhood trauma of some kind, but I did not hear it.
I know that game.
So we're moving into a section now that I think, Connor, this is way more up your alley, and that is the discussion of Doom Guy and the story of this game and how it relates to 2016 and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So I will have to be honest before I start talking about being impartial. I'm not totally impartial on this, so I'm just going to let you guys hash it out and interject when I feel like it's necessary. But can you kind of give us... I feel like you probably paid more attention than we did to what the story is. So what is the story of Doom Eternal?
It's a great question. There's a lot. There's more than meets the eye on this. It's funny because Doom Eternal could be viewed, like the story of it could be viewed in the really simplistic manner of angry man who's too angry to die saves the earth, but that has consequences. And that's basically it. Like you could literally leave the game there and it would make sense to you. But if you wanted to, you could dig deeper and learn more about the Sentinels and the Argenta and the Makers and the dark pact they made with the demon lords of hell, and where the Slayer himself comes from and how he gained his power. There's a lot there, but what's nice about it is that it's optional. You can just kind of ignore the codex and the game still makes sense in the fact of just, I'm going to kill demons, and there may be some people telling me to not kill demons, but fuck them, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm the Slayer, and that's what I do. It's kind of cool how like there's different lenses you can experience the story of the game through. Maybe it's a bit of a double-edged sword, though, if you pardon the pun, because there's a big double-edged sword in the game. But it's that optional aspect of the story where, like, if you don't want to, you can just not read the codex. That, unfortunately, the side effect of that is that the story, if you do want to experience it, feels kind of stilted, feels kind of watered down, because all you're doing is reading it. You're not really experiencing it. So there's a downside to it where, yeah, you could ignore it, but if you choose not to ignore it, you're maybe not experiencing it to its full potential. But I'm sorry, your question was, what is the story? But what's cool about Eternal is that it really tied in the old games to the kind of rebooted universe of the 2016 game. So the original Doom guy, the Marine from Doom 1, Doom 2, who was the survivor of the Mars invasion, went to hell. Basically, Doom Eternal implies that guy was carried through dimensions and ended up on another planet called Argent Denur or Sentinel Prime. I'm actually not sure which one it was. and he was kind of adopted and trained by this warrior-like culture called the Argenta, and he joined their elite corps of knights called the Sentinels, and he just wanted to rip and tear, and he stopped talking. He wasn't able to speak after that. And then the Argenta went to war with the demons, and it turned out that the demons and the makers were kind of working together. And then Doom 2016 happens, and after 2016 happens, Earth is invaded by Hell, and the makers are actually helping the demons invade Earth, and the Slayer is stopping it. But in return, or in the process, he's basically dooming this high-tech, very advanced race of angel-like beings to extinction, but he doesn't care because he's the Slayer, and so he kind of makes enemies of them as well. So yeah, it's just a guy who wants to save humanity, and everything else is secondary and doesn't matter to him. And there's all this stuff with Samuel Hayden and Vega that even I'm still not sure I understand yet. but that's basically the gist of it. I would say that it's one of the aspects of Doom Eternal that I enjoyed the most, because I just liked kind of getting the background on things as a short break between killing and butchering, and I'm gonna kill some demons and I'm gonna read some story, kill some more demons, read some more story. I kind of liked that, and the fact that they tied in the original Doom Marine and made it canon that he's the same guy as the Slayer was pretty cool, I think.
Okay.
Sorry for the rant.
No, that's good. We're listening patiently.
Very patiently.
I read all the notes, all the story in the game, because for me, story is also very important. I love the story in 2016. I read every single page also. But I think Eternal suffers from too many names, too many different locations.
Sure.
I'm talking just about when you read the story. I was super confused, and at some point I just stopped caring. There's just so much, and a lot of it is not. And I mean, it's interesting, but you forget about it because there's too many names and stuff. And then you see like a Sentinel in the game. You're like, who's that guy? I have no idea. Or the King. You don't quite get what's happening with that guy. So,
yeah, it takes a huge investment of kind of time and thought to really piece together the codex entries, because I think a problem was that they were sort of given to the player throughout the game in a kind of a disjointed, like they weren't chronological. So if you go from one level to another, the entries don't really flow into each other. They feel kind of all over the place. So it's kind of like you have to just beat the game and then maybe go back and read what you picked up, and it's a mess. I will admit that it's definitely a mess. I liked what I eventually put together and understood, but yeah, it's presented to the player in a bit of a messy way.
And my other issue is more of a long-winded one.
Go off. That's cool.
2016 kind of felt like Half-Life to me. You're like, you get into this situation, you don't really know who you're playing, and then just stuff happens to you, and it never cuts from your view. You're going through this facility, things happen, you meet people, you react to them, and there's always like a strand connecting every action you do, and you're always seeing all of this through your eyes. The camera never really leaves. It does for like zooms and stuff, but not really. So it had a really nice Half-Life quality to it, and it's just gone in Eternal. There's tons of third-person cinematics, and you're tugged away from this part of the universe to the next. There's no real connection between these parts. There isn't in the story, but you don't live it. You can just chill on your spaceship for like hours, and then when you're ready, you go do that other thing. But that while the spaceship is nice to decompress, that cut that it makes detracts from the overall satisfaction of being immersed in the story, I found. I don't know if you understand what I mean.
No, I get it. Does it feel like it doesn't make sense for the Slayer to take a break like that and hang out in his space bachelor pad?
That's another part of it.
Okay.
But it's more just that it breaks the connection. Like, imagine if Gordon Freeman, in the middle of his escape, he just went to like an employee's lounge and just chilled there for like a while, and then I'm gonna go back to escaping this. Like,
that would be cool, but no, yeah, you're right. It would be really weird.
What's good is that you're always pushed, like in 2016, to go to the next place for a very specific reason, and you're invested in it. It has to be done now.
Yeah, I did really like the scale and the attention to detail and just the flow and pacing of 16. Like, I think you're absolutely right about how that's a great comparison. Half-Life is a comparison I didn't think of, but that's a great comparison because it's, it's a series of events that you can follow pretty easily. You're kind of in his shoes for it and just going through it with him. In Eternal, I appreciate that it was really kind of zooming the camera out a bit, trying to broaden the scope of the game, not just the story, but the game world and kind of where the events take place. I like that they were broadening the scope, but I think in return they lose a bit of focus. That's a good point, where you're not really living the events as immersively in Eternal, maybe. And I just like that they really put a lot more effort into the world building, and you just kind of get some really cool flavor text in the process. But I can see what you mean by, you're losing some that kind of slice of life quality that 2016 had, where you're exactly what's going down, and the goals are very well defined. You know what the motivations are, and Eternal got a little confusing with that, maybe.
I don't think it's a sacrifice they had to make, though. I think you could have this expanded world and still keep it immediate and motivating and immersive. Like, there's no reason to show Doom Guy in third person. Just stay in his eyes.
Well, you got to show off those skins somehow.
Yeah, that's another thing. But for me, it's super important that you never go out of his eyes. That's so immersive for me, and when you break that, it just takes me out of the moment. And that was one thing that, once again, I love about 2016, that she's just gone.
I personally just thought, I'm playing the game as a Slayer. I'm doing the killing and the shooting and the moving as a Slayer, but every now and then I'm kind of zooming out and seeing what he does in certain situations. And I'm like, no, that's fine, because like I don't know, I kind of just prefer third person games in general, because I like to take in more details of the characters and kind of see them move about in the world a bit more fully. So I didn't have a problem with the third person segments, but I also wouldn't have been mad if everything stayed first person. Like when you pull Hayden's body out of that lab about partway through the game, right before you meet the Marauder, I thought that was kind of cool how you're going from the first person image of the Slayer grabbing, Hayden's robot body and dragging it, and then it kind of shifts focus, because the way the Marauder is introduced, that's kind of a cinematic showdown moment where it would not really have made a lot of sense to just stay first person for that, because the camera needed to sort of move around the Marauder and give him that floor to, toe to head sort of introduction. I think that's a creative choice, and obviously it's subjective. Some people like it, some people don't, but I thought it kind of made sense for what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I disagree completely.
That's fine.
I think first person would have been better in pretty much anything I can imagine. Like the Marauder presentation, it's fine if his hands do something on our screen, but like, just it looks less imposing when you're outside of the eyes of the Doomslayer to see this other guy, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to feel the things. And just to take one example from a scene in the story, when Doom Guy gets into an escape capsule and is shut down on, I don't remember because there's so many locations. I think he's shut down on Mars or
that's
another planet.
Yeah, it's Mars.
And it's all, you don't see it. It's in third person. You see the capsule falling. Imagine if you were like in first person. You're in the capsule. You see he enters the atmosphere. You see the fire in in the window and then you feel the impact, that would have been amazing.
I feel like that would have been kind of limiting the scope of what was happening there, though, because you're in third person, you're seeing the horizon of the shattered planet. You're seeing an imp that sort of, sees the pod fly by. You're seeing the impact. You would miss a lot of that stuff if you were just stuck inside the pod.
It's not immersive though. Like
I was plenty immersed. I don't know about you, buddy, but I was plenty immersed.
I was not.
Okay. We're at an impasse then. That's okay.
Yeah, that's another opinion I'm very hard on. I think almost every first person is just better. But that's me.
That's fine, yeah. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
All right, let's get back to the hub. There are some things going on in the hub that, first of all, you could make the debate of whether or not there should be a hub, but let's just accept that there is one. But some of the things that go on within it, I feel like that were sort of contentious, and I'm curious to know your guys' ideas about that. Mm-hmm. So, Bruno, one of your key points was just the things that were in the rooms. Like Doom Guy has this, like, essentially like a bachelor pad. He's got Funko Pops and guitars that look like axes from a Kiss concert. What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, it could have. It wasn't necessary to do all that. They took it this way. He still has hobbies and stuff. And I understand that when you're not killing demons all the time, you gotta find a way to pass the time. But I think it also loses a lot of the metal quality that the game had. They didn't need all this. I don't have much else to say. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I guess I would disagree, just in the sense that the hub gives the developers a huge opportunity to include so much like fan service, Easter egg type content, where you can have like a torn photograph on the floor that if you zoom in on, you can see like, oh, maybe that was the Marine's family at some point or something, or you can access the computer and play classic Doom on it, and the cheat codes. I feel like with the amount of things they were trying to include in the game, as far as cheat codes and the collectibles and the weapon gallery, like it would be really hard to do that without some sort of hub environment. All that stuff would kind of suck if it was just in menus. You had to go back to the main menu to see any of that.
I don't have a problem with the hub itself.
Yeah.
I was just saying the way they made Doom Guy.
Yeah, that's what also
what you learn about him in the hub.
Yeah. That's where I'm coming from as well. I'm not against there being a hub. I'm not against anything, because I'm the impartial host. I do feel that there's an argument to be made that the hub, some of the stuff that you find within the hub and that you learn about Doom Guy in the hub, or Doom Slayer, or whatever you want to call him, is very counter what he's supposed to be about, or what a lot of people feel that he's supposed to be about, or like.
I suppose that's you could argue that. I guess the way I saw it was that, yes, the Slayer is sort of a singular. He has like a singular focus on his goal and can't be persuaded. He's kind of psychopathic in a way, and he's a force of nature. But I think on some deep level, he's still a man trying to connect with humanity in some ways, trying to hold on to some relics of his past. He's still very mercurial and enigmatic, but I think it's kind of nice to have these little artifacts of maybe what the Slayer once was, maybe way back when he was just a simple Marine from Earth, and back to, a little forward to when he was a Sentinel and when he served with the Argenta Knights. I kind of, it's like a world building thing. It's like a flavor text thing that I personally appreciated. Maybe it wasn't necessary. Maybe some people didn't feel the need to read those things into the Slayer. Maybe like that's all just baggage to some people. But I kind of enjoyed it. I kind of liked thinking maybe underneath this exterior of totally bloodthirsty, mayhem crazed guy, there is this person who just still appreciates guitars and collecting albums and stuff. Like, but also it's like, I don't know, just a fun way to decompress between levels. But yeah, I get it. It might not jive with, preconceptions of who the Slayer is, who the Doom guy is, but I kind of liked imagining little bits and pieces of what might be going on in his head, sort of like maybe inserting my own mind onto his a little bit.
That maybe the way they saw the hub was not like, you shouldn't take it seriously. I think there's a lot of jokes in there.
That was my impression too, yeah.
I think it's like some kind of side thing that's not necessarily 100% connected to like the world and the atmosphere of the rest of the game. And maybe that's why I think it wasn't necessary, or there's a disconnect or something.
I could see that.
But I do like that it's like a pause between missions, but that's mainly because these missions are so long and stressful and demanding.
Yeah, definitely.
This is why I really like what you and Abu and all those guys do over at Lore Party, is that I'd never even considered that Doom Guy had a life before Doom 1.
Yeah, right.
Except for the downtown level, or like when you kind of visit his, to some extent, like, is this my house or is this my neighborhood?
Right.
Kind of, but there's an even deeper argument probably to be made in terms of like the original Doom games, as much as we kind of like reminisce on them thinking, oh, the story didn't matter and all this kind of thing, but it was a choice just like it is here. You could choose to just see like, all right, I'm just here to shoot the demons and get past the door. That's it. Or you could look into it a bit further and pay attention to the map and the in-between screens and the names of the levels and piece together this whole story of like, well, there's, this shit going on in the moons of Mars and yada, yada, yada. And then eventually people came up with a much bigger lore than was originally presented at face value. So I'm glad that you kind of made me consider that, because I was kind of holding on to my perspective of, I just want Doom Guy to be nothing but a pure badass with no humanity to him whatsoever.
Right.
But, yeah, I think you have a really good perspective there in terms of like what you can learn about him through the hub.
Thank you. And yeah, I would say there's like, it's not, I don't mean to say it's like a bad interpretation of Doom Guy to like just see him as the guy who kills demons. Like, that's a perfectly valid way to read his character. I do like that you can kind of go as deep as you want with it. You can kind of leave it where it is. There are things we know about the Slayer that are kind of not up for debate, but and we just leave it there. Or you could dig in and really see what's under the surface. But yeah, it's a deceptively deep game. That's what I love about Doom. Like, there's actually some lore to it. Even back in the originals, when I played when I was like in first grade, which I shouldn't have been at the time. I did anyway. Like, there's more to it than just blood and guts and gore. But that's what's so appealing to me about these games.
Bruno, you brought up the point of Doom Guy bowing down at
Yeah.
one point, which was to me also extremely offensive.
It's just, you see him in 2016 he's like really filled with rage. I understand he just woke up and he was probably pissed, but I feel like a lot of this is missing from Eternal. Like, he can be more relaxed and thoughtful, but there's not enough rage, That's one thing that I felt was missing. He bows down to a guy. There's a bunch of machines he doesn't straight up destroy. In 2016, he broke like everything. Like, just a monitor. He's talking to a guy and he punches the monitor, no reason. Like, there's that was such a tasty flavor they added to 2016 that is not entirely missing from Eternal, but there's not enough.
There's a whole part of Doom 2016 where it is an entire mission where you're going around destroying these Argent
in creative ways.
Yeah, and Samuel is like on the line with you, be like, "What are you doing? You know that this has like terrible consequences if you keep doing that. You're going to cut off the energy supply and all this shit." Like, and Doom Guy doesn't give a fuck about that. He's like, evil is wrong and suck it. Like, just breaking shit. And now he feels like he's got some kind of artificial conscious.
I mean, to be fair, he shoots a hole through Mars.
That's true.
You gotta give him that.
Yeah, you do have to give him that. Credit's due.
I did love the moments in 16 where, you know, the trappings of human science or the UAC corporation or whatever, they don't matter at all to Doom guys. Like, I don't care. I'm breaking your shit. And for context sake, yeah, he just woke up and he, you know, his last memory before that probably was being buried alive in that temple where the demons trapped him. And so he wakes up pissed, understandably. He wakes up to a situation of humans, you know, meddling in hellish affairs that they have no business in. So he's like, you fucking idiots, you brought demons to this planet and I have to clean up after you. So I'm pretty upset, understandably. But yeah, in Eternal, it does feel like the tone changes a little bit. Mm-hmm. He's maybe had time to cool off. He's had time to sort of plan some stuff out. You notice in 16, whenever you get a new weapon mod, you punch the little robot that's carrying it because it's like, let go of this thing. It's mine now. But in Eternal, whenever you get a new mod, it's a little Vega drone that gives it to you. But Vega's your friend now, so you don't punch the drones. It's like there's little clues to, you know, why the Slayer is maybe not quite as pissed off at certain entities now. When the bowing thing or the kneeling thing, that's a good point. He does sort of show some reverence and respect to the ghost of King Novik, who was once the ruler of the Argenta. He shows some respect to the Betrayer, which is kind of weird because, you know, why would you respect a betrayer? But I think that just is a clue of these old relationships that the Slayer used to have with the Argenta. Like King Novik used to be sort of, you know, a well-respected warrior ruler of the Argenta, and so the Slayer's like, you know, I'm going to give you props. You know, I'm giving you the respect you're due, but I'm also taking this thing and you can't stop me. So he still has that vibe of, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I need to do and no one's going to stop me, but I'm not, you know, completely bloodthirsty and unreasonable to everybody, I guess. There's a bit of a tempering that goes on.
Sorry. A bit of the problem, I think, is maybe they could have built up to that or something.
Yeah, there's that gap missing between 16 and Eternal where you don't really know what's happening and you're missing some context maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's where some of the DLC might fit in though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Don't worry, it'll all be fixed by DLC. Just
don't think I'm going to play DLC, sadly.
I know.
And where's Aiden? Aiden was the best part of 2016. I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but I wish he would have come up in Eternal earlier.
Yeah, he took a little bit of a backseat.
He was a good antagonist, you know, and he was kind of constantly in your ear, dragging you along the whole time.
I love his voice. I love that he's like gray, not quite black or white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is that there's kind of that clue that Samuel Hayden in another life was the Seraphim, the maker who granted the Slayer his powers. There's that little kind of nugget there. I hope they expand on more. I really hope to learn more about that. But yes, Hayden did kind of take a backseat. Like I liked kind of hearing from him throughout 16, and in Eternal he's sort of relegated to just this role of expanding on some lore stuff. Like he's just kind of that annoying. He's almost like Navi from Legend of Zelda. He's just that annoying voice that sort of pipes in. And it's not serving that character well to sort of put him in the backseat like that, I think.
There's something missing because he's not there for a big part of the game. Like you're mostly alone. There's Vega, but he's not very, like he doesn't have many emotions or anything. He is cool, but there's something.
Vega's a bro. Vega's a total bro. Let's not get it twisted. But yeah, he's no Hayden.
So we kind of talked about the lore and we've talked about the combat, but we haven't really we've touched on it a bit. We haven't talked about the missions themselves. The main complaint that you were kind of given is the length of them. A lot of people did kind of find them, especially in the higher difficulties, extremely exhausting. We even talked a bit about the combat loop, but we've got to talk about the way that you traverse through these long ass levels. And there's definitely an argument either way. So who wants to start off with that topic?
I'm not sure. What do you mean by traverse? You mean the traversal itself? Or?
So I'll bring up some just kind of common arguments, and I'll see how you feel about them. And maybe you don't. Maybe this isn't an issue you take. But so, as you go through these levels, you have the obvious combat loop of where you kill a bunch of enemies and then you go through these arduous, long platforming sections. Some of them seem very obvious. Some people would argue that it's actually very difficult in some spots to know where you're supposed to go, especially the floating coffins. Some people might even argue that it's ridiculous that you should be swinging on like an Olympic pull-up bar, to traverse this level that's in hell. Why would the demons put these weird platforms all over hell or whatever planet they're on for the Doom guy to be able to get to the next location? I'm just curious, do you guys have any thoughts on this? Is there an explanation within the story of why this stuff exists, or am I supposed to just accept that, oh, it's just a video game, it's silly, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
I wonder. I don't
It
know.
is.
Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, really quick. It is definitely kind of silly to just, I'm in this I'm in the hell city of Necroval, and they have monkey bars here. It is, hey, come on down to Necroval. We've got it all. We've got climbing walls. We've got slides. It's a good time.
Yeah.
But I can't really give you a lore explanation for it. I really can't. It's just kind of that's a game mechanic. I'm sorry. You're just gonna have to accept it. I get that though. It's a bit of a, I don't know, tone issue where it's like, this doesn't seem to fit very well,
Yeah.
but it's a mechanic that they want you to have. So you have it, and it's weird though.
It's actually probably my favorite improvement from 2016.
Interesting.
But I've always been a big fan of first-person platforming, and I know, once again, I'm in the minority.
That's an interesting position. I like that though.
Yeah, I like how it grounds you in the world, and it's good to know your physical body can go places, and it feels like a real place when you can do that. And
Have you played this game, Cyberhook? The demo just came out for the Steam Festival. You
no,
seen this?
I didn't have time.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, please do. If you like first-person platforming, it is some top-notch indie shit. That's good stuff. Sorry.
Cool. No, that's fine. Look into that.
Yeah.
But that's funny. I definitely agree. I think I'm in some Doom fan groups. There's this one on Facebook that I'm in, and a lot of people complain about the platforming a lot. But
Yeah,
I like it though. I think the swinging is, it's a traversal puzzle that's pretty neat, but it's also a combat tool, to create distance and get some elevation. It's nice. When parts of the game mechanics serve multiple purposes like that, I think it's cool. I like that. So I'm glad we agree on that.
Yeah, I think it's fun to, even if it doesn't make any sense, it's fun to gamify levels. It's fun it makes the levels have interesting shapes, and it helps for scope, and it can be scary when there's a huge pit and stuff like that. And I think it's way better than it was done in 2016.
Oh yeah.
Plus, it's a good way to make finding secrets more interesting than just activating a wall.
If you two chumps are just gonna hug each other and sing "Kumbaya," draft Dodgers, I'll play I'll have a heel turn here.
There we go.
Here I go. Fuck it. The platforming sections. I'm not against the platforming. I actually, as I just stated, a game that I love. I love first-person platforming. I think it's super fun. I was the biggest touter of the Jump Jam and Quake that happened earlier this year. I think first-person platforming is one of the most fun and underappreciated things in gaming. I just thought that some of this was dog shit in this particular game because you can't see what direction you're fucking going half the time. There's a whole part where it's you have to just search around and search around and search around to try to figure out where you're supposed to go, and you fall 100 times. And I understand that the game is supposed to teach you. I get that games are, the art of making a video game is teaching someone what they're supposed to do or allowing them to figure out what they're supposed to do. And I just really felt like it was poorly implemented in this particular game. And I would even say in some of the levels, not in all of the levels. In fact, I feel that it's harder early on before you start getting into the later game. Once you're on Erdak, you have the dodge mechanic as well as the double jump and everything. And it makes a lot more sense, and you can actually move with a lot more freedom. But overall, I don't like the floating coffins. I feel like they're fucking dumb. It's okay if you don't feel, I appreciate that it's just a game. However, I really don't understand why that mechanic has to be there in order for them to tell this story. It felt like it was added in because somebody wanted it. Like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Like, sure, but like, I don't know if it fits. Yeah, but just do it anyway. Like, that's kind of how it feels. It feels like the big corporate penis on the table just laying there being like, do this because I like it.
I think they did it to because the levels are so linear, and if it was just arena after arena after arena, like it would get just painful.
Breaks up the cycle.
Yeah, okay. I think that they were like, we got platforming, let's make it a bit more interesting, and that's what you do in between sections.
Right. Okay. Yeah, my point of the linearity point, I would say that I didn't find the missions very linear because you do have these side paths, or not really paths, but these side areas you can kind of go off into to find collectibles, and a lot of them do involve those climbing walls. And I think even if it wasn't implemented well in every level, it's kind of like that was the solution for the problem of how do we have jumping puzzles that don't all just involve platforms? Like, we got to have something else to jump off of and interact with. And I guess that's where the climbing walls came from.
But then you have these
it's hit or miss.
Totally arbitrary, like little timer things that are floating in the middle of the air. Like, I don't know. It just feels so arcade and so not Doom.
It is definitely very arcadey. I'll give you that. Yeah.
A couple of things to say about the arcade, but the platforming itself also sometimes it just doesn't work. Like, there's a ton. I'm the kind of guy who's gonna find all your out of bounds, and there's constantly like floors that you see them, it's there. There's clearly a floor, and you step on it and you die, and like you do this non-stop when you're looking for secrets, and this is like unacceptable for me. That's one of the biggest frustrations I had.
What about the secret? I don't know if you guys found it, where you have to jump off a cliff to find the dopefish.
Yeah, that one bothered me.
Parasail to get to this dopefish, and then once you get it, it like makes this stupid jump pad that you fly. Oh yeah, everything's cool now. Like, where was that before?
It was like, you're just gonna have to throw yourself off this cliff and hope that the secret's down there and that you'll find it and not die. Yeah,
and the extra life mechanic, if we're gonna talk arcade.
Oh, sure.
I hate it. It's a nightmare. I was glad when I lost all my lives. I was like, a weight off my shoulders. Because
finally, the taste of sweet death.
Yeah.
The sweet release.
It's stressful to lose your lives. You can't get them back, and then it's just stressful. It's like a punitive slap in the face when you die, like an extra, you messed up, you're never going to get this back.
I mean, that's interesting.
Once you lose them all, then you're free. It doesn't matter. You can die, you respawn, there's no problem. So once I lost them, I was happy.
That's interesting. So you kind of get them back when you just collect more, but do you mean that you have to go forward to get them back? Is that what you mean? Like, you have to? I mean,
if you lose them all in this level, it's too bad you don't have any more. So you have a huge incentive to keep them, or if in the future you're gonna get a super hard battle, you want to have like all these extra lives.
Yeah, you want to not lose them all at once, at least. That's the idea. I like them just as a safety net, just as like, if I have a few extra lives, if I get into some really hard scrapes, I can keep going. But are you kind of coming at it from the direction of, I would like to be able to just kind of go back a little bit and not be caught in this fight, like dying over and over again? Is that kind of what you mean? Or
no, I just don't want to be punished an extra way when I die.
I don't see how it's a punishment, though. I guess that's what I'm having trouble with. Because to me, it's like you get to just try again at this fight, but you don't even really lose anything. You lose
a life.
Yeah, but you can get more later if you just keep playing.
But maybe not. Maybe you're gonna have this hard battle and you won't have all your lives.
Right, but then at that point, you just kind of get set back to the checkpoint and you try again.
Yes, but I'm this type of player who's going to hoard things. Like,
sure, yeah.
In the Elder Scrolls, I'm going to have like all the healing potions, mana potions. I'm never, ever going to use one.
Yeah,
I'm the exact same way.
But I'm keeping them all. And I had this in Eternal, and I felt bad when I had to lose my lives.
Yeah, I feel you.
I'm serious. Like, I felt better when I had no lives. I was like, there's no consequence for that. I'm just dying and I restart.
I think there's an option to turn lives off in one of the difficulties.
Oh, yeah.
I think, but no, that's understandable. I totally had that mindset too of like I had like 20 extra lives in my first playthrough because I was playing on Hurt Me Plenty, the second to easiest.
Oh,
So
now I understand why you like it so much.
I played in the adult difficulty.
Oh, okay. I see how it is.
I played on Nightmare day one. Like that,
Yeah.
I jumped in right on Nightmare, and I to be fair, if anybody watched like Civi's review of this game, I really went through that phase of like, man, I had to get good. I thought I was good at Doom. I am terrible. Like,
You're
Nightmare
serious?
makes
You
us all
started
very
at
humble.
Nightmare?
what's that?
You started with Nightmare?
Yes,
You're
it's the
insane.
first. That's how I played. That's
ballsy.
I'm fucking going in deep. Like I was excited. This is like a month of like cardiovascular training to get ready for the new Doom Eternal release. I was excited, man. Like I took leave off work. I was like, I'm not fucking going in. This is all in. And then I sit down. I have my best friend over here, like my neighbor is just sitting in my chair behind me. Like, yeah, he's got his Doom helmet on. We special ordered the whole game. We sit down to play this thing, and I'm like, we're going all in on Nightmare. I'm gonna crush the shit. And it was just this wall of disappointment. I was just like,
No way. Yeah.
I would make a spirited defense of easier modes just because like
oh yeah,
why
and
why frustrate yourself? But yeah, to
No,
be fair,
it's a game to be played on Earth Me Plenty, definitely.
so I played the first time on Hurt Me Plenty, and my second playthrough on Ultraviolence, and I kind of like that gradual step up. Like I handled the first time, I think I can handle this next one. I honestly, I don't know if I'll ever be ready for Nightmare. That's just me. Like I don't know if I have it in me.
There's no obligation to do that. It was just something I
No,
had
I
to
know.
prove to myself.
No, I get that.
I just needed to beat this game on Nightmare. That way I could say, like, no matter what we review this game, like, no matter how anybody says it, I made it my bitch. And no, it was fun. Like, I actually did enjoy the game. Like, I had a good time. It was just, there are all these obvious things that we could just keep bringing up over and over again. And I really appreciate the way you guys have entertained me. But
You're welcome. Happy to.
at the end of the day, it's a good game. I just don't know if it's the best Doom game.
It's
Sure.
fair.
Yeah. That's it.
Honestly, I was when it first came out and I first played it, and I was like kind of in the honeymoon phase. I was like, this is the best Doom game ever. But having beaten it and like having had some distance from it, I think 2016 is probably still my favorite Doom game.
The
I
best thing
think
that came out of
2016
this
is better in every way except for maybe the
Movement.
platforming, like and the graphics.
The speed of
better
movement.
graphic.
I would argue against the speed of movement in Doom 2016.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, the dodge was a game changer. Like the dodge mechanic was such a welcome addition in Eternal.
I think the best thing that came out of Doom Eternal was Night Dive's release of Doom 64. It's absolutely outstanding. Everyone
That's pretty
should
sick
play it.
too. Yeah.
It's so good, and the
Doom
new
64
levels.
is an amazing game. If you haven't played it, it's
I have it
well
installed.
worth
I haven't played it yet though.
Highly recommend it.
Don't be ashamed to play Brutal Doom 64 also.
Oh,
Yes.
I want to. I hear so much about Brutal Doom.
I loved it. Best
just had-
FPS in years.
Sergeant Mark on the podcast like 2 weeks ago. That was great. So-
Nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely want to listen to that. I've been so busy.
No, dude, I don't expect you to do shit. You need to be getting me. I want you to get done with episode 2 of Nightmare Reaper. You shouldn't even be doing this podcast.
Yeah, what are you doing?
You're
here?
right.
Go work on it.
I've paid you my hard-earned money.
Not wrong.
No. I truly though, like, do you have anything to share? Is there any inside scoop you can give us? What can we expect time-wise or gameplay-wise or anything with Nightmare Reaper? I like the screenshots and the little videos you showed of the cityscapes levels. Those look cool.
Yeah, it fits way better than caves and stuff for this type of engine
Okay.
because everything is all in a city. Everything is 90-degree angle, so it's gonna be better. I think. I don't want to say too much.
Connor, have you seen or played Nightmare Reaper at all?
I haven't yet, but I'm actually looking into it right now. My
Can we hook
interest
him
is
up?
peaked.
Can we get him a key or something
Oh yeah, sure.
as a show of solidarity?
That is so neighborly. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd give you my key, but I just gave it away like 2 days ago.
That's fine. I'm looking at it on Steam right now. It looks amazing. It reminds me of I have been playing a bit of Project Warlock lately, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of on that.
Great game also.
Yes, I agree, and I'm kind of on that kick of like that retro inspired, but the art style Nightmare Reaper here just looks amazing. Like the colors, the
It's a
use of-
roguelike.
It depends on who you ask for that, but
I like it.
It's all changing right now.
I'm into it. It looks cool. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the lore party interpretation of Nightmare Reaper.
Oh yeah, if you like story, there's it's told in a slightly different way.
We are actually.
I'm giving you this pitch not because Bruno's my friend or anything, but because I liked his game before he was my friend. I really think you would dig the way that the story is told. This is a very unique way of telling stories in an FPS game.
Absolutely, that sounds cool. We actually are doing a series on indie games this season on Lore Party, so that's a great fit.
Hell yeah!
Hell yeah!
You won't get a conclusion though, but one day.
And when is the next season of Lore Party supposed to debut?
Yeah, we're actually working on it right now. Season 7 of our sort of primary podcast series kicks off. It's actually kind of in progress right now. In fact, last night, the night before this recording we're on right here, my co-host and I recorded our first episode on the Doom series. So we are each season on Lore Party we have a different set of games and topics we cover. A bunch of us kind of take sort of the lead on different series, and my series this season is the Doom series. So we're diving into Eternal. Obviously, we're going to be examining some elements of 2016 and some of the older games, really tying them together. And it's going to be a great season. I think I'm really excited.
Yeah, please find some
about Doom 3.
I do love Doom 3, just as an atmospheric sort of entry. But
yeah, it's a great game, but I mean, talk about it.
We'll have to bring you guys back on for the Doom 3 debate.
that'll be a fun one.
Years down the line, but
absolutely.
No, I'm looking forward to collaborating more, man. I really, you've enticed me because my style of podcasting is so dramatically different than the way you guys do things, and I like variety, and I want to be challenged. So
I gotta say likewise. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No. Say what you gotta say.
But no, yeah, this was a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely. Let's do it again. It's weird because I've been a part of Lore Party, the team, for about a year now, a little over a year, and we've gradually just gotten so much more serious and dedicated to the scripting and like really planning out our episodes and being really thorough and making sure we're backing up a thesis or whatever. It's very serious and like it's a lot of work. And, any podcast is a lot of work, but it's like very cerebral. And it was so cool to just come on here and on your platform and just chill out and have a conversation, because we don't really do that a lot on Lore Party. So it's really fun to really just hang back and have a chat. It's been great.
I think that there's a debate to be made that like throwing yourself in the deep end on a regular basis, like it's like jazz. What you guys do is like a symphony. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's well edited. It's got like all this glamour and it's wondrous. Like it really is. Like I love the whole Witcher series, especially the stuff where you guys were diving into Skellige's background and all that stuff. And I really also enjoyed my wife enjoyed also the Stardew Valley episodes where you're talking about like the darkness of Stardew Valley and everything.
Yeah, I love that also.
What you guys do is fantastic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's great to hear.
Over here, it's like I'm playing jazz, man. I'm freeform. I'm putting myself in that flow state every time. Like I don't always come with a plan. Sometimes I have like notes or something that I can outline. Right now, I literally, if you saw my desktop, you'd be like, oh, he literally just has Bruno's list of problems. But no, it's fun.
It's a beautiful thing to just get into the groove and let the conversation take you away to where it needs to go. It's a beautiful thing.
Hit those 12-bar blues.
Exactly.
Flex a little bit.
Just learn a couple chords and then play off of that, and then just goof off.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I really had a good time.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
It was fun.
Thank you to Morpher for our beautiful dark ambient music throughout the podcast. Always a great contributor to the show. Love you, brother. Go check him out over on his Bandcamp page. Just Immorpher, IMMORPHER, Immorpher. Bad motherfucker. Hire him to do all your awesome dark ambient soundtracks for your game or whatever. Thank you also, of course, to our guests today. Thank you to Connor Howard and to everybody over at Lore Party. Go check them out at loreparty.com. Listen to all of their amazing shit. I highly recommend, just exploring the catalog, see if there's any games in there that you really resonate with. And I'm sure that if you click on that episode, download it, and give it a listen, you'll have a good time. Also, thank you, of course, to Bruno Beaudoin, the amazing, the powerful, the almighty designer of one of the best damn retro FPS games out there right now, Nightmare Reaper. Go to the Steam page, download that shit. It's awesome. If you love this podcast and you want to give back in some way, you can go to inthekeep.com. You can find all of our catalog there, and you can find our merch tab and our support tab. There's Amazon affiliate links. There's links to our Patreon account. There's all kinds of ways for you to support the show. But as always, guys, the number one way that you can support In The Keep is just to tell other people about it. Go on your social media platform or whatever the fuck it is. If you have a blog, write about it on your blog. Tell your friends about it. Buy yourself a t-shirt, wear it to a concert or a gaming convention. Whatever it is, man. Just spread the word. That's the main thing. Tell everybody. I mean it. Don't just like shit on fucking Twitter, man. Retweet it. Don't be a lazy bitch. I love you. You're amazing. Hugs and kisses, everybody. From myself and the Drowned God Cathala, please stay safe out there. Please keep a level head on your shoulders. And we'll see you next time. Till then, stay in the keep.